Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this edition of our monthly or bi-monthly webinar, which is hosted by GoLearning and Knowledge Group Consulting. Today, we are very pleased, we're very honored to have Mr. Rob Lauber, who is the former Chief Learning Officer of McDonald's, to be our speaker. He will be speaking to us about the future of work. Rob, who's gracefully accepted to be our guest today, is currently the Chief Learning Officer and founder of XLO Global. He's a learning and development executive. He's skilled at leading transformation and innovation within multiple organizations and multiple industries over the past 30 years. He has worked extensively with big corporations in order to enhance their learning and development space, and he's doing it currently within his own consulting firm, XLO Global. A little bit before we start about our sponsors, GoLearning is one of the region's pioneering AI-powered educational platform. Let's speak about, probably KGC first. Knowledge Group, of course, has been a leading learning and development organization, has been serving the UAE and the region since 2006. They've worked extensively with top business schools and top organizations across the globe to bring in the best in the industry in a customized manner. On the next slide, we will see some of their partners who contribute to their learning and development as well as assessment offerings. A little bit about GoLearning. GoLearning is, as mentioned before, one of the region's pioneering AI-powered education platforms. It offers a comprehensive catalog of about 10,000 professional development courses through partnerships with global edtech leaders like Coursera and edX. The platform combines accessibility with flexibility, allowing users to access content via mobile or desktop with a user interface available in more than 30 languages. You can actually join with a freemium model where you can access over 3,000 free courses, or you can choose a premium option starting at 25 dirhams per month. You can, of course, cancel at any time. There are no commitments. Finally, I think a word on a new partnership that Knowledge Group has made with Simplilearn. So Simplilearn and Knowledge Group has partnered exclusively to bring in one of the largest bootcamp for digital skilling. The Simplilearn programs range across AI, data science, cloud computing, software development, and their programs are also created in collaboration with top universities such as Caltech and Purdue. In addition, they also work with top organizations like IBM and Microsoft, where you can access programs from IBM and Microsoft on their platform. They conduct as well live classes and large scale, sometimes live with 1,500 people, and they do actually 1,500 live classes every month for candidates and participants from across 150 countries. I think this concludes my introduction. Rob, I thank you very much on behalf of the partners, on behalf of the audience, and I hand it over to you. And thank you so much for being here. We'll be listening very carefully because we want to know what the future of work is, because I'm looking forward for the future.
I think we're all trying to figure it out. So, Dr. Robbie, thank you very much for having me on today. I'm very excited to be here, and thanks to especially to KJC, GoLearning, and Simply Learn for sponsoring this webinar. Glad that we're able to get everyone into this session today, right at the end of the day. So, appreciate that. I'm really excited also to discuss how AI is transforming the world of work and what we can do to prepare our teams and organizations. So today's session is really structured to provide a comprehensive overview from understanding AI's impact and to strategies for building readiness. So, it's pretty clear the AI revolution is upon us, right? And that's what makes it very interesting these days. It's got implications basically for every industry and almost every role and every single one of us. So my goal over the next, 45 minutes to an hour is really to equip you with some actionable insights and inspire confidence in navigating these changes. Oftentimes we think we're the only organization out there facing challenges, but I think you'll find that there's lots of us all trying to figure it all out as we go. What I thought I'd do is start with a poll question. We've got some poll questions we're going to ask you during the course of this. I think we've got about 80 or so people on here, so it'll be good to get some views and wisdom of the crowd here. And so we're going to start with a poll question, and I'm going to get some help here in posting up the first poll question. But it's basically about how you would describe where your organization is in adopting AI. So let's take a look and see what you think. You've got 5 choices here in terms of no movement yet, still discussing it as a possibility, experimenting, actively scaling it, or it's embedded in all of your work. So take a minute and vote there, and let's see where we stand so we can get a feel for the audience.
And while you're answering the question, please, if you have any questions, you can just type them in the Q&A. You can use the Q&A feature of Zoom, and we will answer your questions at the end of the session.
Yes, very good observation there. Thank you. All right, let's give everybody a couple more seconds here and see if we can show the results. All right, here we go. So we've got people quite across the spectrum, it looks like here, where we've got, some that are just still figuring it out, discussing it as a possibility, seems like about a third, and experimenting about a third, actively scaling it about a third, and a few of you, it looks like you've got it embedded in all of your work. So this may be redundant for you or, insightful for you as well in terms of seeing where everybody is. And this is pretty consistent with where organizations tend to be. I was looking at the other day at a Gartner study here that talked about, interviewed about 3,000 CEOs about where they are with AI as well. And more than 50%, actually almost 60% of organizations said they're still in probably these first 3 categories, discovering it, still learning, basically, I would describe it in these first 3 choices in terms of no movement, discussing it as a possibility, and experimenting. So lots of organizations with good intent and learning their way, which we'll talk about sort of the need for continuous learning as we go as well. So let's talk about, AI in general here, if I can get my slides to advance. Here we go. So AI is really no longer an emerging technology. It's here, it's revolutionizing our industries, whether it's automating repetitive tasks, enhancing decision-making, or creating entirely new business models. The impact really has been profound on what's been going on. And AI has been talked about for quite a few years, but I think the advent of generative AI and tools like ChatGPT and others have really sort of opened the floodgates for organizations to really examine AI adoption, its possibilities, and its practicality in the organization. So if you take McKinsey's findings, for example, and it's consistent with what we just saw in our poll, half of all companies today are leveraging AI to some extent or another. And this adoption ranges across a spectrum of ideas around improving operational efficiencies to creating customer experiences that are personalized and more specific to who those customers are. In fact, the World Economic Forum, which is probably obviously a famous and reputable group, and I think they have their forum going on now or recently, estimates that up to 40% of tasks in some jobs could be automated, which I think is sort of the headline that people have been paying a lot of attention to, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which makes people a little bit nervous in terms of if you take 40% of what I'm doing, what am I going to be doing in that 40% of time? So today we're going to think about what that means for our organization, sort of beyond efficiency. AI is really unlocking opportunities for innovation, but it also presents a challenge, which is adapting to these changes at an individual and an organizational level. So there's a few current trends shaping this new world of work. The first one is that hybrid roles tend to be on the rise. And these are positions really, when we talk about hybrid roles, we mean positions that require technical expertise alongside soft skills like emotional intelligence, creativity, and ethical reasoning. For example, new positions like an AI product manager need both technical knowledge and the ability to collaborate with diverse teams. So really creating new sort of ways of working there in terms of roles and maybe less traditionally siloed roles is what we're starting to see emerge. Obviously, continuous upskilling is becoming essential, and it's actually now the new norm, I would say. We saw in our poll from all of you that many of you are in your organizations are actually sort of experimenting and learning and beginning to implement. That's an activity associated with continuous learning and upskilling in the organization. And the speed at which your organization can move is tied directly to the level of skill that exists in your organization. And as AI reshapes job requirements, individuals have to keep their skills relevant. And this shift also elevates learning and development as a strategic enabler of transformation. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But if you're in L&D on this webinar today, you're no longer just training providers, but you actually become architects of what the future workforce needs to look like and what it needs to be. And then lastly, I'll say, ethical use of AI is really critical. And it's talked about a lot, but I'll give you some examples as we go. But there's organizations really making sure, unbiased algorithms, protecting data privacy, and other ethical considerations are all central to successful sort of AI launch and integration into your business. So let's talk a little bit more about why upskilling matters here. AI obviously is transforming the skills landscape at an unprecedented pace. And I've been in the skilling world for 35 years now, and I don't think I've seen it change this much and create this much dramatic need for upskilling in that time. Traditional career pathways are being disrupted, but it doesn't have to result in displacement. Instead, it's an opportunity for growth if we act now with some urgency. You see industries like manufacturing and healthcare that are particularly urgent areas for upskilling due to automation, advanced analytics that are really transforming core operations, which is impacting how people work. For example, in healthcare, professionals are being trained to leverage AI for diagnostics, which leads to more accurate and faster patient care. So their ways of working are transforming quickly. And as a result, they're able to see more patients in less time with a solid diagnosis as they go. And similarly, on the other end of the spectrum in retail, the rise of AI-driven inventory and customer management systems necessitates training for frontline employees to really understand and be able to interact and leverage and capitalize on these technologies. So reskilling is really the key to turning potential displacement into career evolution. For example, data from the OECD shows that industries investing in reskilling programs see improved employee retention and higher productivity. And I'll show you a few examples of that as we go here. Organizations have to prioritize upskilling, not only to remain competitive, but also to empower their workforce. Beyond the economic benefits, this investment fosters a culture of innovation and adaptability. So I have two poll questions here coming up for us to respond to. So let's take a look at those now. The first one is a pretty simple question around how actively is your business engaged in upskilling? Three choices for not really at all, for a select few audiences, or everyone's got access to upskilling opportunities. Let's get a sense of where we are as an audience as well. We're just passing 100 people. I know we had about 55 answer last time. Let's see if we can get ourselves up into the 90% response rate here on this poll. Would appreciate that. It's important data for all of us to have. All right, we see answers coming in, and we'll wait a second here to give everybody a chance for as many as possible. All right, let's show the results on this poll here if we can. It should be coming up in a second on your screen. Yeah, great. Look at that. 42%, everyone in the organization has access to upskilling opportunities. So, and still some opportunities, of course, 20% of the folks, not really at all, right? Some, and others are taking a select few audiences. And that's not all that uncommon in organizations to be focused on select few audiences as well. Many organizations are starting down their upskilling path by starting with target audiences or critical audiences that might be most disrupted or that are really key to strategy enablement in their organization. So not uncommon to see select few audiences as the second most common or pretty much even choice here in this as well. So we've got next another poll here too as well that I'll just put up. And this one is really about answering questions about your philosophy around talent development. And this is, when it comes to talent development, what approach does your organization prioritize? And that is an organization-driven approach, meaning you're focused on it from a strategic perspective, or is it really an employee-driven approach where you're trying to solve for the masses and make sure everyone has access to some sort of upskilling opportunity? Love to see what you think about this one. I suspect I'm going to the answer, the previous answers might tell me what this answer is going to be, but it'll be interesting to see if there's a dichotomy here as well. All right, we'll give this another minute. I see results coming in. All right, let's take a look at our results here in poll 3. So thank you for your responses. Yeah, there we go. It looks like, again, about 60-40 here. It looks like organizational driven approach versus employee driven approach. Again, also not uncommon as organizations sharpen their saw and their focus on what skills their organization really needs. And depending on how much AI, for example, is disrupting that organizations, many take an organization-driven approach and move there. It's almost part of the evolution piece. And then the employee-driven approach is also interesting as well, where organizations are really looking at it. And I know at McDonald's, our approach was actually employee-driven, where we were looking at how can we advance and upskill the crew that work in the restaurant, regardless of what career path they wanted to pursue. So we were more an employee-driven approach as well. So super, this is great, and I appreciate you answering these questions. So let's take a look now at a real-world example. So Amazon's upskilling 2025 programs, is really an outstanding example of reskilling in action. Probably an extreme example of reskilling in action. But they're investing $1.2 billion US to prepare for 300,000 employees for roles related to AI, machine learning, and cloud computing. The initiative spans multiple innovative programs. For example, their machine learning university tailors courses that equip employees with foundational and advanced skills in machine learning. Another program, AWS Training and Certification, has already helped tens of thousands of employees transition into technical roles in the organization. And by the end of 2023, they had over 70,000 employees participate in these programs, and many advanced into roles such as data scientists, cloud engineers, and machine learning specialists. And this is especially true for example, people that work in their distribution network in warehouses and other frontline roles. Amazon's investing heavily into them in order to be able to move them into roles that are much more technical and driven for their organization. This proactive approach is not just an investment in their workforce, but also a strategic move to maintain their competitive advantage and to build a competitive edge in what they see to be a future AI-driven economy. According to internal reports from Amazon, employees who participate in these programs, interestingly, report a 35% increase in job satisfaction, and they also stay longer and significantly longer than the company average. And their approach demonstrates how a clear vision for upskilling can drive both employee growth and organizational success. And I'll say it, at McDonald's, when we ran our organization-wide upskilling program called Arch Waste Opportunity, which still exists today, that program resulted in people staying actually 3 times longer on average than people who did not participate in upskilling programs. So kind of an interesting piece there to think about as well, particularly if you have a strong frontline population and retention is super important to you as well. So let's talk about fostering adaptability. Building AI-ready teams really requires a deliberate approach. So the typical place people are starting is really by enhancing AI literacy across your organization. So, answering fundamental questions like, do people really understand the fundamentals of AI? Can they differentiate between what's realistic and what today might be hype, or what they can do right now versus what the possibilities might be of organizations out there? And personalized learning powered by AI itself can actually accelerate this process. So platforms from the partners that we saw, like KGC, GoLearning, and Simply Learn, they use AI to recommend content tailored to individual needs. And these tools really ensure employees receive relevant learning and relevant training that correlates to their career aspirations. Lastly, I'd say collaboration is essential. So cross-functional teams combining HR, IT, and then business units can really foster innovation and ensure a seamless integration of AI technologies into the organization. So speaking of collaboration, let's take a poll right now on training delivery methods and how you're building AI literacy across your organization. So this poll really talks about training delivery methods in the context of better outcomes. So it's definitely an opinion-driven, probably poll question, but which one's actually delivering better outcomes? Instructor-led training with platforms like Simply Learn for higher engagement and retention, or more of an on-demand course program, which drives flexibility and scalability. So let's take a second and see what you think here. See some results coming in. Looks interesting so far. All right, let's flip over and show the results for people to see. Hey, look at that, almost 50-50 here. Interesting. The debate continues, I think, in terms of is online better than face-to-face? And I think that the answer to this one really has to do a lot with from an outcomes perspective, what you're trying to achieve as an organization, as well as how your organization might be structured. So for example, in a McDonald's kind of environment, on-demand courses were almost a necessity in terms of our ability to reach people because we had a distributed environment. It was difficult to really reach, and bring people together, given the thousands of locations that we have and the vast geography that we run across. So instructor-led training wasn't really a viable platform for us to be able to do that. So we needed the flexibility and the scalability option that on-demand courses could provide. Contrast that with like our staff in our headquarters, which had about 2,500 people, where it was much easier and much more practical for us to actually run instructor-led training programs. We could bring people together. We could, discuss as a group what we wanted to do, and we could begin to generate that cross-functional collaboration type of environment that we talked about a minute ago around, how we foster the environment, with targeted training. So, all right, thanks for that one. I think we've got one more to go, polling question, and then we will, and then we'll move on to our questions at the end. And just again, if you have questions as you go, please feel free to post them in the Q&A piece here, and then we'll address those as we get towards the end. So, all right, so let's take a look at another case study very quickly here. Schneider Electric is a large multinational firm as well. And their use of AI-driven learning recommendations kind of exemplifies the power of personalization. So employees receive training suggestions tailored to the roles that they're in or roles that they aspire to. So this has led them to a 20% increase in training engagement, meaning more people are consuming, more people are engaged in upskilling and taking advantage of what's being offered to them. And then furthermore, the AI tools that they have drastically reduced the time employees spend searching for relevant resources in their LMS, allowing them to focus on learning and productivity. I know in my experiences, our LMS had thousands of courses in it. And often the challenge was someone would go into the catalog and basically say, where do I find this course? Where do I find a course on? And we're really seeing AI tools simplify that in a dramatic way and make it very easy for people to quickly assemble personalized learning for them that can work. And you can see here our LinkedIn Learning blog in 2024 about Schneider Electric really talks about how they were able to reduce time for learning resources. We talked about learning a little bit. I want to talk about HR in a more broad, in a more broad sense in terms of what's going on. While learning is definitely a piece of it, HR functions are also sort of at the forefront of AI integration. So as organizations adapt AI, HR plays a critical role in ensuring that the transition is seamless and aligned with organizational goals. Leading change management is actually one of HR's primary responsibilities. They have to communicate the benefits of AI clearly to the workforce, and they have to address concerns and work to reduce resistance to change in the organization. They're also tasked at the same time with redefining roles and career paths. So as we implement AI in our organization, what's it going to mean for roles? What do new roles look like? How do we even think about jobs as we go forward? These are all huge questions that HR professionals have to address and also create, and help employees transition into roles that require more advanced strategic and creative capabilities. Some companies like Unilever, for example, have shown leadership in this area by implementing predictive AI tools for talent acquisition while reskilling existing employees for future roles. So they're reskilling their employees and then they're leveraging an AI, predictive analytics platform to be able to tell people where those roles are going to be. So if you know where the roles are going to be in the organization, obviously you can take the time to upskill and get there. Additional role that HR plays as well is in ensuring the ethical use of AI within the organization. This includes developing frameworks that prevent bias in hiring, as well as work around data privacy standards. Fostering a culture of continuous learning is also one of their critical responsibilities. And, HR may need to lead the culture, needs to lead the culture transformation needed in order to move the organization to a mindset of more continuous learning. And by implementing AI-driven learning platforms, HR can ensure that employees at all levels have access to the tools and the training that they need, to thrive in an AI-driven environment. So another case study here, particularly as we talk about, ethics, and I'll talk about sort of IBM's role in driving AI adoption. they've really established themselves as a leader, not just in technology, which is what we know them for, but also as, in implementing AI within their HR processes. So their HR function is a prime example of how HR organizations can effectively use AI to enhance talent management while prioritizing ethical considerations. They're using AI-powered tools to analyze employee performance, predict attrition, and identify opportunities for career growth. And by providing managers with actionable insights, IBM ensures employees have the tailored development paths aligned with both their aspirations and the organization's strategic needs. And when it comes to recruitment, IBM employs algorithms that are specifically designed to mitigate bias. So these algorithms are carefully audited for fairness, ensuring hiring decisions promote the diversity that they're looking for, as well as the inclusivity that they're looking for. And according to internal reporting there, this approach has actually helped them improve their candidate representation by over 20% in recent years. And furthermore, their commitment to responsible AI is also reflected in their creation of an open source AI ethics toolkit. And this toolkit not only helps IBM systems be transparent and equitable, but also it provides a resource for other organizations to adopt similar practices. So the innovation that they've taken is really to create that open source toolkit where others can see, use, and leverage it. And by combining the technical innovation with ethical accountability, their HR team exemplifies how AI can be integrated into workplace processes responsibly, driving both operational efficiency and employee satisfaction. So again, sort of just recapping those actions, the big three areas that we would think about in our space around the future of work here is really AI is playing a big role for them around talent sourcing, which is leveraging it to attract diverse qualified candidates. Second, it's around career development. So personalized employee growth pathways that not only meet the aspirations of the employee, but also the aspirations of the organization. So where do we want, where do we need jobs and where do people want to go with their job is a fundamental question that they're able to answer with their AI-powered tools. And then this last one's really interesting. They're actually able to predict attrition, with 95% accuracy. So in this sense, they can help and provide insights to managers to really help them figure out where their flight risk is, where people may be thinking about leaving the organization, and they can proactively go after it and take steps to address it. So deploying AI ethically is also critical to building trust and ensuring fair outcomes. So many leading organizations have set benchmarks with their ethical AI frameworks. Microsoft, for example, has established AI principles that emphasize fairness, accountability, transparency, inclusivity. And these principles guide the development and deployment of their AI technologies, ensuring they align with cultural values around the world. Google's taken what they call a human-centered approach to AI ethics. Their responsible AI guidelines include commitments to avoid reinforcing bias, ensure safety, and especially protect user privacy. By integrating these guidelines into their product development processes, Google wants to ensure that their AI tools serve humanity effectively. And IBM, again, with their Open Ethics AI Toolkit, really provides that resource for other organizations to use as a benchmark. So, and really the ethical piece demonstrates that AI, and adopting AI in the organization isn't just a technical challenge. It's also a cultural commitment in the organization that people have to face. So naturally, AI isn't without hurdles, right? And we've seen some of it in our polling questions earlier today, earlier in this presentation. A reaction and resistance to change is pretty common, especially when employees fear job displacement, or when there are security concerns, or when the company, frankly, just takes an approach to being a late adopter to technology. So, AI readiness definitely can be hindered by this resistance to change. Second piece is that also is a barrier is around skill gaps in critical areas. And skill gaps such as data analytics and machine learning further complicate the readiness. But skill gaps in general across the organization about what AI can do or what its potential might be and how it can be applied in the organization also slows down the organization's speed in adopting AI readiness. And as you saw in our poll, and as we've seen, in as I mentioned in the Gartner research, 60% of organizations are really still learning, is how they would describe it, what they can do with AI. And really, that's a statement that they're working to close skill gaps in these critical areas. And that's basically what's hindering them and slowing them down from an AI readiness perspective. Also in this space is, talent shortages. So we talked a lot about upskilling, and upskilling is seen as a necessity to close skill gaps, not only, but also to, identify critical talent. So for example, in LinkedIn's 2024 workforce report, their 2025 one just came out actually, but this one's from their 2024 workplace report. AI job related postings are growing faster than the actual available talent pool. So organizations have a big appetite, but the availability of skill is what's slowing down organizations from moving as fast as we can. And obviously, with AI being sort of a frontier-based technology, right? It starts with very few people having the skill and then turns into an opportunity for the rest of the organization to really upskill and reskill to be able to adopt this new kind of technology. And then the last barrier to readiness is around sort of ethical concerns around AI use. And again, that Gartner study that I mentioned earlier, 27% of CEOs that were surveyed said that they're not sure if the benefits of AI actually outweigh the risks of AI. So they've got, quite a few concerns with what AI can do, how it might be used in the organization. And they're working through issues like around, nonsensical outputs and hallucinations. How do they deal with that? Copyright violations or factual inaccuracies or, business model risk by populating information into an open source LLM. Are they giving away their company secrets and their company strategies? So these concerns around AI use from an ethical perspective really are, creating challenges for organizations as they go and in terms of trying to figure it out. So let's take our final poll here before we wrap up. This fifth poll here, and it says, how do you plan to foster continuous learning in this fast-moving AI landscape? So first one's around promoting a culture of ongoing development with example, Simply Learn's AI-focused programs. And the second one's around implementing a T-shaped skilling platform, where basically you're trying to cover both breadth and depth, thus the shape of the T. But basically you're trying to go wide and deep in the organization from a continuous learning perspective around AI. So maybe you could take a shot at answering this poll here, and let's see what we come up with from a response perspective. So here we go. All right, good. So we've got about 73% promoting a culture of ongoing development. So that's good, right? Because really ongoing development is something that's going to be, required as the technology continues to accelerate and evolve, right? And then T-shaped is also good too, although a lot more difficult, which is probably why we're seeing 27% here in our poll. Going deep and wide is a pretty challenging task, given the size of organizations and how AI is really permeating every function and every role within the organization. So that's super. All right, so let's get to our next slide here. All right, so basically addressing the challenges head on, requires an organization to really focus on clear communication. So, employees need to really understand how AI is going to enhance versus replace their roles. So I think the notion of being assistive more than being a replacement is a pretty important piece to reinforce. And leadership training can really prepare managers and guide teams to help people move through effectively. Again, that ethical AI frameworks, which we talked about, but also partnership with external organizations can also help you create pipelines of skilled talent, right? And can accelerate that as well. And definitely the partners we have that are sponsoring today's webinar are great places to start to really help you accelerate where you can go. So let's talk quickly about the road ahead. As we look to the horizon, the future of work, really it promises exciting possibilities, but it also demands a lot of thoughtful preparation for all of us. So some key trends, I think, and predictions that we'll see shaping the road ahead is, again, increasing human and AI collaboration. I call it AI and HI, right? Artificial intelligence and human intelligence collaboration across the organization. So, we talked earlier about roles becoming more hybrid, where creativity, emotional intelligence, problem solving, are really going to become central to what humans will focus on. And AI will be able to provide more precision and efficiency in helping people get there. For example, we talked about healthcare industries, but AI can analyze the diagnostic data, and practitioners can then provide the human touch as a good example of that collaboration that's going to happen. Second, AI-driven decision-making is going to play a more significant role in strategy and operations. Organizations are going to leverage predictive analytics and machine learning to really guide decisions going forward, from market forecasting as well as talent acquisition strategies. In fact, Gartner predicts by 2030, decision-making processes in 70% of organizations will heavily depend on AI-generated insights, which makes a lot of sense. Big amounts of data that AI can quickly distill and present to you in actionable ways. And then lastly, the growth of AI learning infrastructure ecosystems is another transformative trend that's out there. And these ecosystems will make continuous upskilling more seamless, more personalized than ever before. So if you can imagine a workplace where AI suggests learning paths based on your project needs or career aspirations in real time. And again, many of the partners mentioned earlier today and the sponsors today are actually already paving the way there and should be looked at very closely. And then moreover, ethical AI governance, which we've talked a lot about, will become a cornerstone of trust in the workplace. So organizations that prioritize transparency, fairness, and accountability in AI use will gain a competitive edge, attracting both customers and top talent. Initiatives like IBM's AI Ethics Toolkit demonstrate how ethical governance can really drive innovation and safeguard cultural values. And finally, we're witnessing the emergence of AI-specific leadership roles now as well, such as chief AI officers or dedicated AI task forces within organizations. And that's where we're seeing really those cross-functional collaborative roles between HR, IT, and other business functions. These leaders will be responsible for aligning AI initiatives with business goals, ensure ethical compliance, and make sure that the culture of AI readiness continues to exist everywhere in an organization. And by thinking about these trends and understanding these trends and then acting decisively, we as a team here on the call have the opportunity to lead the charge into an AI integrated future. Understanding where things are and where things are going is critical to really taking the journey where strategic investments in technology, workforce readiness, and ethical practices can yield rewards that are substantial, where your organization sees more innovation, more inclusivity, and resilience in a rapidly evolving world. So I just want to mention also, before we take questions, that Simplilearn has just launched the Simplilearn Hub Plus, which is basically unlimited access to over 700 live instructor-led classes each month, and then 550 plus learning solutions, which cover many of the things that we talked about today around building AI, AI capabilities, digital skills, and industry certifications. And then interestingly, which I think is a real differentiator as well, and a real value they can bring to the table, is they've got hundreds of hands-on projects in integrated labs, which help people, get some real world application before actually applying in the workplace. So right now you can, empower your workforce with the skills they need to thrive in this landscape. And they're offering a 30-day free trial. And if you're interested in that free trial, really all you have to do is go into the chat and just say that you're interested. And someone from the Simply Learn or KJC team will be reaching out to you, and we'll go from there. So I'd love to hear what you all think and your reactions to what we were talking about today. So I want to open up the floor here for some Q&A and see where we go.
Great.
I know we've had a
Thank you
few.
so much, Rob. It's been very educating, I think, the way things are moving forward. I have
Yeah.
a couple of questions of my own, but first let me start with some of the questions from audience. I have a question that says, would we think the burden of AI upskilling within the organization should fall? Should it fall with the organization or with the employees?
Yeah, it's interesting right now. I'd say there isn't a clear answer to that question in terms of where, how organizations, I'd say, are behaving. You see organizations, and I've talked to quite a few organizations over the last few weeks, and you see a real contrast where some are, organizational management's taking a very proactive role and really working hard to define how they want the organization to use and embrace AI. And others are still a bit resistant to it and don't quite understand how they want to use it yet. So what we're seeing in organizations where it's not clear, from management how they want to adapt and embrace, we're seeing more employees taking the personal development initiative approach and discovering on their own what's possible and what's capable. So you see a lot of individual experimentation, right? Like, we'll all go out to ChatGPT and look something up, or help craft an email or whatever it might be. Experimentation while we're waiting for that organization to really define its strategy.
It's interesting, and I think this really falls in line with the answers we've been seeing about the adoption of AI. I think organizations who are adopting AI or early adopters of AI in the workplace are the ones who are investing in the upskilling of their employees, while the ones who are still resistant probably are, refraining from that at the moment.
Yeah.
Hi, yes. Sorry, the chat is disabled, correct? But you can type your questions here in the Q&A icon where you just actually type.
Yeah, I apologize. If you're interested in the Simply Learn approach, you can just tell us you're interested in the Q&A. I think that's a way to go.
Okay. Here's a question now. Another question. Considering the nature of AI tools currently open for use, how can we ensure that the AI tools we implement align with ethical guidelines, company values, while also driving innovation?
Yeah, I think this has been a big question for people, with some of the early stories about hallucination and questions questions around intellectual property protection, those kind of pieces, I think are raising big questions about the use of some of the publicly available large language models like OpenAI's ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or other ones that are out there. So I think that I think proceeding with caution when you're using those, especially for a business context, is really important at this point, until your organization really figures out. What I've seen organizations do that are trying sort of to address the ethical piece and ensure it is really harnessing their own large language models. Organizations like IBM, Microsoft, Google, obviously big multinationals that have the technical capabilities to do that are doing that. But I'm also seeing that in organizations like Colgate-Palmolive and others that are out there that are not necessarily known for their technology. And they're working more to make sure that they are building a fence essentially around the data that people are using for AI. And that's where the ethical sort of piece comes into play, where they sort of understand what the language model is that's in place, and they know how to answer those questions, and they know sort of with reliability what the answers to questions are going to be.
Yeah. That's quite interesting. It's like you can ensure your people within the organizations are ethically driven in the use of AI, but we don't know that the organizations who are, offering the open AI, how they're going to use the data and how is the data is going to be used. That's
Yeah,
very
when you think about many organizations have large bodies of organizational knowledge, and they want to put that someplace and make it, well, it exists in places, but they want to make it easy for people to sort of sift through and sort through and aggregate. It makes sense then that they would have sort of their own self-contained large language model to be able to do that. And I think that's one of the ways that is helping drive that.
Okay, so I have a few more questions, but let me try to take a hit on this one before I give you the next question. So the difference between the course's content on GoLearning versus Coursera and advantages. I think I'm not probably the most eligible person to answer that. However, I do know that the GoLearning are strictly focused on technology courses, while Coursera has multiple other like in arts and sciences and business and so etc. A question now with regard to programming AI. It says, how do you input the data to train AI to make recommendations?
Yeah, pretty difficult question to answer because it's a very technical question to answer, right? But essentially, it starts with creating a large language model. So, which is really around, think of that as the sea of data that you want to have. So if you think about all your organization's documents, all your organization's emails, or all your organization's presentations, all your organization's customer information, potentially, sales information, those kind of things aggregated into one big, large database. And then I think training the AI is really about, I don't have the technical aspect of it, but basically training the AI is really about building the algorithm that produces the probable outcome based on questions people might ask. So it takes a few months to do it. And I know that it's training AI data is a continuous process because your data is constantly changing. So typically in an organization, you're going to find folks focused on machine learning, people focused on machine learning in your organization that will spend their time doing that work around training it. It's a very technical kind of role, is the best way to describe it without getting too deep into the sort of the technicalities here.
I know now that, for example, ChatGPT and Claude and others have certain, functionality, which is you can upload some data and tell it that you put instructions. So you put the context in which the AI answer questions. So you tell them in the context of this information, act as the CEO and then provide information only based on this. So you can actually limit it, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's just
for sure. Yeah, it can analyze any kind of data, and I think that's where that's where people get that's where some organizations get a little nervous. So if I upload my organization's sales data and say, give me an analysis of results and best opportunities and customers into something like Claude or OpenAI, that information actually now goes into the universe of the larger language model. So you kind of lose the proprietary aspect of that piece, and that's what makes people a little bit nervous. But you're right. Uploading a training document and say help me make this better is a pretty easy task right now that these systems are built for, and definitely worthwhile. You'd be surprised in experimenting with that, the value that it can provide.
We're doing fun things with things like creating a context for the answers, like be tough when answering or be kind or something like that, and it actually changes the language.
That's right. Yeah. And I like personally, I find it really helpful to create images for me as well. right? So it's like having your own graphic designer available to you.
Like, you know how to write the prompt properly. You get weird
That's
things
right. That's
outside.
right.
All
Yeah.
right. Another question here is, it says, how can HR integrate AI into recruitment, performance management, while ensuring fairness and the mitigation of bias in decision making?
Yeah, I think this one's a tricky one. I think that the good news is that many of the suppliers in the recruitment and performance management processes are building AI capabilities into their platforms right now. So many recruitment, for example, many recruitment platforms right now are building AI-driven screens to be able to, to your point, uploading documents, someone's resume and answers and or interviews, and having AI evaluate those against criteria and provide you with the best candidate. I think that, for example, is a good example of how they're mitigating bias, right? Where they're putting the criteria in that they're looking for. AI is generating a list of the best candidates, and it's very blind to them about, I like Robbie, and he's on the application somewhere. So, it creates much more fairness in the process and mitigation of bias. Performance management's another area where we're just starting to see, that's a really interesting area as well, where I've seen people upload performance management commentary and ask for improvement and different ways. I was talking to someone last week who told me that their performance management process now captures notes and asks specific questions to the individual about, about the person you might be evaluating, and will then turn around and AI will generate actually a paragraph of feedback, basically, that can be summarized around that individual through sort of a question and answer approach, almost an interview-driven approach. So we're starting to see some, I'd say it's early days on the performance management side, but I do think that those are some really promising areas to make it easier to make sure that you're being fair and, as less biased as possible, I would say.
I mean, I'm imagining a future where cameras are all over the workplace, where AI is people and then evaluating how their performance in the workplace. So
Yeah, they'll be like, Rob spends too much time on his email, right? Yeah. Okay, how do you know that, right?
Another question says, regarding the AI tools that are being used in schools and universities, and these tools aid students in certain assignments. So is that perhaps affecting their development of imagination skills and or problem solving?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have children in university right now, so it's kind of interesting to watch them solve the problem of writing a 10-page paper in 15 minutes with AI. But what I've seen though is and I don't have a lot of data around this, but what I've seen is professors kind of turning the table to lean more into, defending the position or being able to demonstrate that they actually comprehend the subject matter that they're being asked to write a paper on, right? So I think the notion of, handing someone an assignment and say writing a paper on the economy of the UAE and its trends over the last 5 years or something like that is a very easy task using AI. But really then interpreting that and understanding that and being able to speak to and defend it is where I'm seeing professors and university leaders lean into students, which I think is great because, right, that's the critical thinking skills that really need to happen as well. And I think the imaginative skills side of things in terms of, creativity and those kind of pieces, like, you mentioned prompting, being able to prompt and generate ideas still requires some level of creativity in how you ask the questions. So I don't know that you're getting away from the need for creativity by letting AI generate ideas, is what I would say.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. but there is also, just a follow-up on what you've just mentioned is that there are actually the professors at universities, schools, they're moving away from asking straightforward questions. So asking about, comparison and, underlying factors between things. So they're making the questions more complicated or more complex, let's say, in order for them to ensure that the person who is answering really comprehend what's happening there.
Yeah, and I think generating the paper is one thing, but then actually understanding what's in it, the
Yeah.
subject matter is also an important piece.
Yeah, I have kids in high school, middle school actually, and they actually they say that they use ChatGPT and then another program that would make sure it's not plagiarized in
Hmm.
order to submit. But I don't know what to tell them. I don't know if I should tell them don't use it or use it, because I think everybody's using it, and in the future everyone is going to be using it. So why deprive them of this? But I always tell them that you read what the GPT actually uh, produces as an output to make sure that you understand it before you submit it to the teacher. But I
Yeah, I think
think
that's right. And I think it's forcing, universities and professors and teachers to think about new ways of working
yeah.
and new ways of teaching. And I think that's a big, huge conversation going on right now across the world.
Well, I think this wraps up our webinar. We're sharp on the top of the hour. Well, how reliable is the information we get from AI? Oh, that's a very good one. How reliable do you think the information we get from AI?
I think in general, I'd say it's very reliable, right? I think that, take an area where you have a lot of expertise and start asking it questions and see if you get a different answer, right? I think that, you know, there's definitely still the hallucination side of things where we'll insinuate, I would say, or potentially hand you some facts. But oftentimes when I'm presented with facts, what I turn around and do is say, great, now provide me the sources for this information. And it will reference the sources it used to give you that information. Or push back if you think something doesn't sound right and say, that doesn't sound right. Are you sure? And you'd be surprised. Sometimes it might say, well, I'm not really sure, but this seemed to answer the question. Right. So I think there are ways you can challenge AI to vet out what's real and what's not real.
I'm sure there has been a lot of crooks over the years whose data has been input into the chat GPT. I've
Exactly.
experienced the same thing. And it actually Claude told me, oh, I'm sorry, it seems I made a mistake. This reference doesn't exist or something. So you have to be very careful. I even
Yeah.
actually uploaded a logical reasoning question. So which one is the answer? And actually get the good analysis, but I think it gave a wrong answer. Doesn't sit well with me, but I might be wrong.
Well, I equate that to like asking someone's opinion, right? If I go to a good friend of mine and I say, hey, I'm dealing with this issue, what do you think? Right? The quality of that answer sometimes is good, sometimes is not so helpful, right? I think
Okay.
AI, you can expect the same
Yeah, I wonder if on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire they allow us to call ChatGPT.
thing. Not yet.
Very much. Rob, I want to thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time and for the information you provided us. Thank you all for your attendance for this webinar. We're very grateful for your attendance and hope to see you in our next edition. And until then, I wish you all well and best of luck in the new year. I think this is the first one in 2025.
Great. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.